Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with Helena Wadia. Coming up tonight, another senior Tory backbencher calls for the Prime Minister to resign over Partygate as MPs debate plans to investigate Boris Johnson over claims he misled Parliament. The royal family have wished the Queen a happy 96th birthday and described the monarch as an inspiration to so many across the UK. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes. Plus, a collection of photographs has gone on display marking the history of the BBC. We'll take a look at some of the icons of the past 60 years. And a brand new event at Brixton House in South London, where 8 independent artists take over the space for a lineup of live theatre, comedy and dance. First tonight, though, MPs have voted in favour of an investigation into allegations that Boris Johnson misled the House with repeated denials about Downing Street parties during the coronavirus lockdown. Well, several Conservative MPs voiced their frustration at Mr Johnson, with senior Tory backbencher Steve Baker calling on the Prime Minister to resign.
All of us should approach such things with reverence and awe and an awareness of the difficulty of doing it and the potential consequences, and that's why I've been tempted to forgive. But I have to say now, the possibility of that really, for me, has gone. I have to say I'm sorry that for not obeying the letter and the spirit, and I think we have heard that the Prime Minister did know what the letter was. The Prime Minister now should be long gone. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll certainly vote for this motion, but really, the Prime Minister should just know the gig's up.
Well, that was Conservative MP Steve Baker there. It comes as the Metropolitan Police has said it won't announce details of any more fines until after the local elections on May 5th. However, Downing Street has previously said it would confirm whether Boris Johnson is given more fixed penalty notices. Well, the motion today was led by Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer.
This is about honesty, integrity and telling the truth in this place. And it's an important principle, and it's one we all share. As I say, I'm not claiming this as a Labour Party principle. It is a principle that we all share because we know the importance of it. That's why it's a matter for the House to consider. But it is a principle under attack because the Prime Minister has been accused of repeatedly, deliberately and routinely misleading this House over parties held in Downing Street during lockdown. Now, that's a serious allegation, because if it's true, it amounts to contempt of Parliament. And it's not, and it should never be, an accusation that is made lightly. And nor should we diminish the rights of members to defend each other from that accusation.
Well, the Prime Minister missed the Commons debate today due to an official visit to India. Boris Johnson was presented with a copy of a guide to London written by Mahatma Gandhi during his visit to the Indian independence leader's ashram in Gujarat. Speaking to the press, he insisted he was content to face extra scrutiny about Partygate. Now, Jeremy Corbyn has said that he should be reinstated to the Parliamentary Labour Party, calling on Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer to restore the whip to him. In an interview with the Evening Standard, the former Labour leader said he hoped to stand at the next general election as a Labour candidate.
What I hope is that the Parliamentary Labour Party will recognise that they are in an untenable position. Yes, my membership was very briefly suspended of the party after the publication of the HRC report, and then I was reinstated unanimously by a panel of the NEC, and then subsequently my PLP membership was suspended. I think it's wrong, it's unfair, and I should be reinstated, and indeed an awful lot of people in Islington think exactly the same. But what happens after that is hypothetical. I think the short period after the local elections, which are on May the 5th, would be a good opportunity to right what I believe to be a wrong.
So your hope is that you will be reinstated, you will be able to stand as a Labour candidate at the next general election. In the event that you aren't readmitted to the party, I'm sorry we're getting into the area of hypotheticals, in the event that you're not, would you be prepared to stand as an independent?
Let's deal with that bridge when we get to it.
Why won't you just say sorry, though, to facilitate that, to make that more smooth?
I've explained many times that my total abhorrence of anti-Semitism in any form. I made that very clear. on behalf of the Labour Party in a statement in 2018, and that there were people who were hurt, there were people who were wrongly treated. That's why I inherited a non-system, and with great difficulty I introduced a system of dealing with complaints against people, some of which were correct. People had committed acts of anti-Semitism and were quite rightly suspended and a small number expelled. Others were malicious complaints against people that had done nothing wrong and were subsequently reinstated. And there was a process set up by me to do that. The HRC did an investigation, and on the day concerned I accepted the HRC report and said that it should be implemented and I would support the implementation of it. And we should move on from that point.
There you go, that was Jeremy Corbyn there. Now, latest government figures show that fewer than a third of Ukrainian refugees who have been issued with visas have arrived in the UK. A total of 71,800 visas had been issued as of Wednesday under 2 schemes to take in Ukrainian refugees. But as of Monday, just 21,600 Ukrainians had arrived in the UK, according to the Home Office. There has been concern about the length of time it has taken for visas to be issued to refugees under the scheme. Well, government officials believe some people applied but are staying in countries bordering Ukraine, so they may return home sooner, or they are waiting for everybody in their family to receive permission before travelling. Now, police are still hunting for a male suspect wanted in connection with the death of a man who was stabbed to death in his home in East London. The victim, a 20-year-old man, was found knifed to death in what police called a brutal attack at Hudson Close in Plaistow. Detectives say that the suspect had forced their way into the man's home and stabbed him repeatedly before fleeing the scene on foot to Park Grove before moving towards Chad Green. The suspect is described as a black male who was dressed in all black clothing. Police have urged anyone with information to come forward. The charity Crime Stoppers have launched an appeal with a £20,000 reward for information on the murder of Ola Raji. Raji was shot and stabbed on this day 7 years ago in 2015 as he cycled onto the East Surrey Grove estate in Peckham. Well, 2 men attacked him and are believed to have fled the scene on foot via an alleyway from Cater Street into Sumner Road before turning into Rosemary Road towards Surrey Canal Path. Well, 3 people have been arrested during the course of the police investigation, but have all been released. His family say they will never give up trying to find justice. Police have released an image of a man they wish to speak to in connection with an alleged sexual assault in southeast London. The incident took place on the upper deck of the number 99 bus at Woolwich DLR station on the evening of Sunday 20th of February. A man got on the bus at the same time as the victim, in her mid-teens, engaged the girl in conversation and then is alleged to have carried out a sexual assault by inappropriate touching. He is described as aged 18 to 25, 5 foot 10 inches and of Asian appearance. He left the bus at Plumstead Manor Way. No new sponsor has emerged for Transport for London's Emirates airline, with the current sponsorship deal due to cease in June. TfL's head of sponsorship, Danny Price, said he remains optimistic an agreement with a new firm could be reached for the cable car, which provides a direct link between the O2 Arena in Greenwich to the XL Exhibition Centre in East London. If no new sponsor is found, TfL will have to bear the cost if the cable car continues in operation. Time for a look at the weather now. Well, this evening remains mild with temperatures around 9 degrees overnight. Tomorrow morning is much of the same with light cloud and a moderate breeze. Looking ahead on Saturday and Sunday, there will be sunny intervals with temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, so you might be able to catch some rays this weekend. Well, just before the break, let's bring you this. The royal family have wished the Queen a happy 96th birthday and described the monarch as an inspiration to so many across the UK. Well, the occasion has been marked by the release of a new picture, and London Live's Tanya Francis has more.
It's the Queen's birthday and she's reached the grand age of 96 today. Well, here she is looking lovely with 2 white ponies at Windsor Castle. This picture was released today to mark the occasion and her love of horses, which she shared with her mother, along with this one of her as a child. She's just 2 years old in this picture. Well, this is actually the first of 2 birthdays. Today is her official one, which she'll spend with her family in Sandringham. And she has another one in June, which is when the big public celebrations will happen, including the Trooping the Colour, also known as the Queen's Birthday Parade. Well, here in London, her birthday is marked with a 41-gun salute in Hyde Park and a 62-gun salute at the Tower of London. It's a big year for the Queen, as she'll also be marking 70 years on the throne, with many Jubilee celebrations planned between now and the official bank holiday in June.
There we are. Well, time for a break now, but coming up, London Live's paper reviewer Matt Withers will be here to take us through what's making headlines in the local newspapers this week, including a new petition for blue badge holders.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Time now for a look at the stories making headlines in the local papers. Well, London Live's paper reviewer Matt Withers is here. Matt, thank you for joining us. Let's start with this, the anger at a plan to hold a festival on the 5th anniversary of London Bridge terrorist attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. This is in the South London Press, and this is residents who, it says here, outraged at plans to hold a festival on the South Bank on the 5th anniversary of those terrorist attacks. This is Bankside Open Spaces Trust, which is apparently an environmental and volunteering charity. It's holding a festival on June the 3rd in celebration of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and it says the resilience of the community during the pandemic. It's going to be live music, stalls, activities. But a lot of people locally feel that this is inappropriate, given that it coincides with the date of the attack. George McIntosh is a local. He's quoted as saying it's really insensitive that they seek to host a festival on the 5th anniversary of the London Bridge attacks. He said that they only spoke to some people who don't represent individuals and traders living and working in the area. They've also spoken to a gentleman called John Lavelle, who says it makes me angry that a local charity has failed to properly engage people in the local community or to ignore or be combative about feedback they don't like. So anger both over the fact that this is taking place on this day, but also I think people feel that we've not been properly consulted about it.
Is this a long-running festival, and have the festival organisers said anything in response?
It doesn't appear to be a long-running thing, as it specifically is marking the Platinum Jubilee and the resilience of the community. BOST themselves haven't been quoted, but the council, who are obviously involved in this, have spoken. They say that they're extremely mindful of the timing of the National Jubilee weekend celebrations, which coincide with the 5th anniversary of the London Bridge and Borough attacks on June the 3rd. But they point out that the events are some distance from where the attacks took place, and we are just one of many thousands of street parties taking place over the 4-day bank holiday weekend. That whilst their priority will be supporting all those affected by the attacks to remember those precious lives lost and impacted, they wouldn't seek to prevent others taking part in a celebration of Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee, words which I suspect will probably not console those people who are very upset about this.
Absolutely. OK, well, it doesn't look like it's going to be moved then. Let's move on to this, I think, great headline, reptile set for Redbridge Park.
Yeah, and this is, again, absolutely true. This is the Ilford Recorder. These are lizards that are going to be introduced to a Redbridge Park, moved from the site of a planned development in Thurrock. Redbridge Council is going to move these in after it's approved by Cabinet. A company called Nordor Holdings is to build 161 new homes and more than 7,000 square feet of employment space, not quite sure what that actually means, in Churchill Road in Little Thurrock, and that will displace a small population of slow worms and common lizards. Now, as of next year, a new law will come in that if you are to build in somewhere that is going to displace any form of natural wildlife, you have to pay for them to be moved elsewhere. So this is what's happening here. They're going to have to pay £17,000 over a 5-year monitoring period for these lizards to be moved in a carefully managed way.
Well, there we go then. That sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, people seem very pleased about it. Claybury Park is described as an ideal reptile habitat by Tim Moyer Associates, who prepared an ecological report on the scheme. So yeah, everybody seems very happy about this. Rare bit of good news.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, on this segment, we often talk about naming and renaming locations. This next story says that there are no plans to rename a West London park after the Labour MP Diane Abbott.
Yeah, this is a curious one. This is on the website My London, and it begins, reports that a North West London park will be renamed after Diane Abbott are false, the local councillors confirmed. Now, one of those places you can read a report that they were going to rename it is on My London, and that story is still on the website. But they initially reported that there were plans to rename Gladstone Park in Dollis Hill, which is named after William Gladstone, who people probably know was a 19th century Prime Minister who served 4 periods in office. But some people find him problematic because he had minor links to the slave slave trade, when slavery was outlawed, he called for former slave owners, such as his father, to be compensated, but he himself would later refer to slavery as the foulest crime in British history. So it's more nuanced than most, I would suggest. But there were reports it was going to be named after Diane Abbott, who went to school in nearby Harrow, but apparently this is not happening, which is understandable because, firstly, I think people would more associate her with East London and Hackney in particular, and secondly, the Queen aside, we tend not to name parks after people who are still living in this country.
Right, well, we'll keep an eye on that. Well, finally, let's move on to the Rumford Recorder, and they're reporting in this article about a new petition.
Yeah, this is a headline. New petition demands 100-year-olds get automatic blue badges. I have to say, I misread this headline initially and thought it said automatic blue Peter badges, genuinely, which I thought was a terrific idea. But this is slightly different. This is a Gidea Park activist who said that anybody over 100 should get an automatic blue badge for their car. She said that at the moment they're forced to justify why the blue badge is needed. So she's got a petition. If 10,000 people sign this, apparently will have to be debated in Parliament.
And has the government extended the blue badge scheme in recent times?
It's at the moment people automatically qualify for the badge if they are registered as blind or receive war pensioners mobility supplement, and it's been extended to people with non-visible disabilities. What she's asking for here is for anyone over 100. Now, it doesn't say how many people over 100 are driving. So I actually did some original research and checked with the DVLA yesterday. There are 505 people over 100 in the UK who currently have a driving licence, and the oldest is 108 years old.
Wow, wow. Well, you would think that most people who reach 100 would require a blue badge, so maybe is it a huge ask?
Well, yes, you could say that. I mean, if you have got to the age of 100 and you have nothing whatsoever that qualifies you for a blue badge, then you are quite remarkable.
Yeah, you're doing quite well. Well, Matt Withers, thank you so much for joining us here on London Live News. Now, that was Matt Withers there. Now, according to new data, millions of households across the country would like to use energy in a more flexible way, using smart meters to create less energy waste and allow for cheaper and greener options in the future. Well, with energy prices hitting households hard, I spoke to green energy expert Dr. Geoffrey Hardy from Imperial College London about how close we are to achieving cheaper, greener and more flexible energy consumption.
I think it's revealed that certainly energy prices are at the forefront of people's minds. I think it's revealed that people are really interested in ways that they can save money through their energy bills and through actions they take in homes. And I think it's also revealed that people are willing to be flexible in their energy use and able to be flexible in their energy use. And a lot of this comes from the fact that a lot of people are working at home at the moment. So, you know, we're actually around all of these devices that are consuming energy. So we've got a little bit more ability to maybe turn things on and off at certain times a day at the moment.
When we talk about smart energy, what does that actually mean?
So smart energy, it sounds a bit of a complex concept. It isn't really. What it is at its heart is a few things. So firstly, it's about having more data that tells us what's happening in our energy system. So that's the generation of energy, the grids that transport energy from A to B, and then also when we use energy in homes and businesses, the consumption of energy, the demand for energy. And at the moment, we've got good data on generation. We've got reasonable data on what happens in the grid, but we have not that much data about what happens in homes and businesses. But that is changing. So we've got about half of homes that have got a smart meter in at the moment. That tells us much more about how energy is being consumed in different places across the UK. And it also means that that's an opportunity to match up the supply of energy with the demand of energy. So that means we could price energy at different prices across the day. So let's say the wind's blowing really strongly. We've got a lot of wind power in the UK. That should mean prices are cheaper when that wind's available, and that should be a big signal to people in homes and businesses to consume energy then, and vice versa when the weather's still.
And you mentioned these smart meters. Just how significantly can smart meter use reduce our energy bills?
So smart meter can reduce energy bills in several ways. So firstly, it gives you much more insight into how much energy you're actually using, which is something that we haven't had great insight into because most bills are estimated. So that can tell you if you've got devices that are on in your home that are consuming a lot of energy when they really don't need to be. You can save maybe up to about 10% off your bill just by knowing more about what you're actually using in your home and what devices are kind of like parasites on your electricity or energy use generally. But also then smart meters help you potentially take advantage of what's going to be the future of energy. So the future of energy in the UK, we're going to have a zero carbon energy system. That's what government is committed to by 2050. So what that means is that basically we're going to have a very renewables-led system. So we're really blessed, as we know, in the UK with lots of wind. We're even blessed with some sun sometimes, like today. And what that means is that if you can consume in homes, in businesses, that renewable energy, when it's available, when the wind's blowing, when the sun's shining, energy is going to be really cheap. And vice versa, if the wind isn't blowing, it should be quite expensive. And that should be a good signal to everyone to shift their demand. Now, that might sound a bit complicated, that shifting demand bit. It doesn't have to be. A lot of the devices that we're talking about in this low carbon future, things like the vehicles we drive are going to be electric vehicles in the most part, if we need to drive at all. Also, the way in which we heat our homes is likely to be more electric. It's going to be devices like heat pumps. That's basically a fridge running backwards. These devices are smart. They're inherently smart. So these devices, if you allow them to, if you give them permission to, could follow these prices. They could follow the wind, basically, so that your bills should be as low as they could possibly be. And that's good for the wider system, because that means we're utilising the wind when it's available. We're not asking people to build extra electricity generation when we don't need to, because we can shift demand away from those periods. That's what that smart system is. It's everything in sync, everything integrated together, everything working together, which is good for you on your bill, but it's also good for the system because it brings down the overall system costs.
There we go. That was Dr. Geoffrey Hardy from Imperial College London there. You're watching London Live News with Helena Wadia. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break. Plus, a brand new photography exhibition comes to West London, celebrating the long and illustrious history of BBC television, from Doctor Who to Top of the Pops.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. A reminder of our top story. A senior Tory backbencher has called on the Prime Minister to resign as the Partygate scandal once again dominated the Commons. Well, MPs spent the afternoon debating whether a Commons committee should investigate allegations that Boris Johnson misled the House with repeated denials about Downing Street parties during the coronavirus lockdown. Well, several Conservative MPs, including Steve Baker, voiced their frustration at Mr Johnson.
All of us should approach such things with reverence and awe and an awareness of the difficulty of doing it and the potential consequences, and that's why I've been tempted to forgive. But I have to say now, the possibility of that really, for me, has gone. I have to say I'm sorry that for not obeying the letter and the spirit, and I think we have heard that the Prime Minister did know what the letter was, the Prime Minister now should be long gone. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll certainly vote for this motion, but really, the Prime Minister should just know the gig's up.
Well, that was Conservative MP Steve Baker there. It comes as the Metropolitan Police has said it won't announce details of any more fines until after the local elections on May 5th. However, Downing Street has previously said it would confirm whether Boris Johnson is given more fixed penalty notices. Well, the motion today was led by Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer.
This is about honesty, integrity and telling the truth in this place. And it's an important principle, and it's one we all share. As I say, I'm not claiming this as a Labour Party principle. It is a principle that we all share because we know the importance of it. That's why it's a matter for the House to consider. But it is a principle under attack because the Prime Minister has been accused of repeatedly, deliberately and routinely misleading this House over parties held in Downing Street during lockdown. Now, that's a serious allegation, because if it's true, it amounts to contempt of Parliament. And it's not, and it should never be, an accusation that is made lightly.
Well, the Prime Minister missed the Commons debate today due to an official visit to India. Boris Johnson was presented with a copy of a guide to London written by Mahatma Gandhi during his visit to the Indian independence leader's ashram in Gujarat. Speaking to the press, he insisted he was content to face extra scrutiny about Partygate. Now, Jeremy Corbyn has said that he should be reinstated to the Parliamentary Labour Party, calling on Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer to restore the whip to him. In an interview with the Evening Standard, the former Labour leader said he hoped to stand at the next general election as a Labour candidate.
What I hope is that the Parliamentary Labour Party will recognise that they are in an untenable position. Yes, my membership was very briefly suspended of the party in after the publication of the HRC report, and then I was reinstated unanimously by a panel of the NEC, and then subsequently my PLP membership was suspended. I think it's wrong, it's unfair, and I should be reinstated, and indeed an awful lot of people in Islington think exactly the same. But what happens after that is hypothetical. I think the short period after the local elections, which are on May the 5th, would be a good opportunity to right what I believe to be a wrong.
So your hope is that you will be reinstated, you will be able to stand as a Labour candidate at the next general election. In the event that you aren't readmitted to the party, I'm sorry we're getting into the area of hypotheticals again, but in the event that you're not, would you be prepared to stand as an independent?
Let's deal with that bridge when we get to it.
Now, a brand new photography exhibition is coming to Hammersmith. The exhibition celebrates the long and illustrious history of BBC television at Riverside Studios, showing a collection of photographs taken behind the scenes of the most iconic programmes made in their original building, from Doctor Who to Blue Peter and Top of the Pops. Well, Hebe spoke to the creative director of Riverside Studios, Rachel Tackley.
So this evening we have the launch of our new exhibition at Riverside Studios, which is in celebration of the BBC's 100th anniversary. So the BBC was at Riverside for 20 years, kind of in the 1954 to 1974. And we recorded really iconic shows here like Doctor Who and Hancock's Half Hour, Top of the Pops, shows like that. We had the Beatles here. It's an extraordinary celebration of those.
And part of the exhibition is you'll be looking back at what's taken place in the studios and, backstage photography. What should people come in, who should they expect to see on the walls, and what kind of shows?
Well, we've got all sorts of people on the walls. We've got a very young Dame Judi Dench. We've got the Beatles from when they were here doing Top of the Pops. We've got lots and lots of backstage photos of recordings of Doctor Who. We've got a cyborg, not a real cyborg. We've got a photo of a cyborg, but we do have, which is really exciting, an actual real Dalek, which for me is so thrilling because it's kind of like my childhood in front of me. It's wonderful.
For you, what's your favourite piece or the piece that kind of means the most to you in terms of photography that's up in the exhibition?
Golly, that's a really hard one because we went through a massive archive, as you can imagine, to choose the photos. And the funniest one is the cyborg, is a photo of a cyborg in Doctor Who. But there's the kind of most iconic one, I suppose, for us is the Dalek that we have on display as a photograph of it coming out of the river, right next to Hammersmith Bridge, which is where we're located. So it really kind of brings it home for me. So that's probably my favourite.
And obviously you guys must have been kind of taking photographs backstage and keeping on file what was going on in the studio. How did you go through all those thousands of different productions that come and go?
Well, it's interesting because the photos are all from the BBC's archive, not from our archive. Because our archive starts when in the 70s when we took it over as an art centre. So it's been really fascinating for me to see what the BBC have got, and they've been extraordinarily generous and opened up their whole archive for us to have a kind of rummage around and come up with the photos that we feel are most interesting and most exciting for our audiences to come and look at.
Yeah, and so give us a little talk through on the different productions we'll see on the walls.
Well, we've got Doctor Who, we've got Top of the Pops, we've got Dixon of Dock Green. We've got actually although we don't have a photograph of it, but famously the first Doctor Who regeneration was filmed here at Riverside Studios. It's such a shame that we don't have that. That would be so iconic, wouldn't it? We've got Hancock's Half Hour. We've got lots of Hancock's stuff on exhibition, which will be some real pieces as well as photographs of that.
Aside from the famous faces and the famous shows that we'll see that have been photographed throughout all these years, who else should we expect to see who features in this exhibition?
And what's really fascinating is the number of people that were backstage. So we've got people operating all the camera equipment as well as the sound and lighting equipment and the audio-visual equipment. And it's really stunning. And for me, what's really interesting actually was the number of women that were working backstage at the BBC in the 50s, 60s and early 70s. So there's lots of, we wanted to choose photos that gave a real sense of what was happening rather than production photos of actual shows, because people will have seen those on TV, but it's kind of like what's interested us is to bring out what everyone's doing behind the camera. So lots of people that you won't recognise as standing in front of people that you will. So it's a fascinating exhibition.
Well, that exhibition is on at Riverside Studios from today until the 24th of July. Plenty of time to catch that. Time for a final break now, but when we come back...
Tell you all how I feel about Joan! 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 And the weird thing is, The Rock can speak, but only in the style of In the Heights.
That's right, I can speak.
The Olivier Award-winning and completely improvised musical Showstopper is back at the Lyric Theatre. We'll be catching up with the cast.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to the final part of London Live News. A brand new event is coming to Brixton House today. 8 independent artists will be taking over the space and putting on a lineup of live theatre, comedy and dance. Well, Tanya has been speaking to Corey Bovell, who has penned a production about gentrification and the impact it has on young people growing up in South London.
I'd say it's definitely a story that's close to me, just because the time that I chose to set the play in was when I was 18 myself. And just there was a lot of things happening around the local area with, I'd say, the rise kind of knife crime, the start of gentrification as well. So I just kind of felt that if I wanted to tell a story after seeing plays like Michaela Cole's Chewing Gum Dreams, I kind of felt that she was able to tell her story and her truth, and I kind of wanted to do something similar.
She's done incredible things since as well, and really tackled really important subjects. What role do you think that art and the stage plays in tackling things like knife crime and gentrification? How easy was it for you to be able to get a very serious point across in what's arguably an artistic form?
I think by displaying it through an art form, I think it helps target a younger audience. I know through various other mediums, they like things are displayed to them, whereas educational or if it's dramatized as well. So I kind of wanted to do the latter and just dramatize something and put it on stage. Stage, I know for me personally, when I was younger, I wasn't really attracted to the stage and to theatres. So I just kind of thought that if I was able to create a piece that is, it covers the themes and it covers the seriousness of knife crime, but then there's also the fun elements of being a teenager. We get to experience this person's life for those 6 weeks. And I kind of wanted to attract, especially a younger audience by coming to the theatres and just kind of just opening their eyes and starting a conversation and just seeing the seriousness of the subject.
The play's going to be running at Brixton House, Brixton being another place that we have seen huge changes, massive amounts of gentrification. Tell me more about the venue. Are you happy that it's being held there?
It's a great venue to have, and I done some work at Oval House as well, so I know the journey that the building has endured from then till now. So it's a great feeling to be a part of it, and the show runs alongside 7 fantastic other shows, which all have their own individual voices, and they're live theatre, comedy, spoken word, and dance.
This isn't the first time that you've taken the show to the stage, and you were actually in the first production of it.
Yeah.
So you wrote it and then starred in it, but this time, interestingly, you've decided to take a step back. Why was that?
As a writer's point of view, I kind of was interested in seeing the development of the piece, and I just kind of wanted to focus a bit more on the writing aspect of it, and then just kind of see what the overall experience and feedback was from the audience. And then also as well, I had some conversations with the actor who's playing it, Malcolm, a fantastic actor, and I just kind of loved his energy and wanted to see what he could do with the piece and how he would bring it to life. Some of the places that we speak about are no longer there as well. So again, it kind of, it brings you back to a time, a memory when you used to go past this place, or you used to see this, or you used to enjoy the leisures of the activities of the leisure centre. So it does create that feeling and that sense of, remembrance during that time. And even though it's set in 2009, like you said, it's relatable, it's still relevant to this day. It's a major theme and issue that we're still tackling.
There you go. The series of events at Brixton House opens today, with Corey's show running from the 3rd until the 6th of May. Now, the Olivier Award-winning and completely improvised musical Showstopper is back with more from the troupe in the capital. Spawned from just a few ideas thrown out from the audience, every show is a bespoke musical meld of genres, invented entirely on the spot. Well, the cast now have over 1,000 unique shows under their belt, and they're gearing up for more at the Lyric Theatre. Well, James caught up with Ruth Bratt from the cast.
If only I could tell you all how I feel about Joan! Joan!
Joan. And the weird thing is, The Rock can speak, but only in the style of In the Heights.
That's right, I can speak. That's right. You got something inside of your soul says you wanna go out and find a lady called Joan. Well, that lady, she can love you good if you go and hang about in her.
We don't have any set narratives. I think that might be harder, actually, than just making it up. So everything comes from the audience, like what the theme is or what the setting is, what musical styles we do, what the title is. So we don't have anything. And I know people are always like, oh, but there's a trick, right? There's a secret, and you have set pieces, and you have, but we don't, because partly, I think, because we'd all be terrible at remembering them.
It must be difficult because comedy improvisation is tough at the best of times, but turning up every night, being on your A game, trying to be funny every night, sometimes completely different ways. Surely, if you've had a bit of bad news that day, you're feeling a bit under the weather, you're in for a bit of a tough one.
I think you can feel that way, but actually it's quite nice because you get to just release everything, really. So if you have had a terrible day or something bad's happened, you can just go, oh well, let's just play with your friends. It's basically playing around with your mates, like having a sing and a dance with your pals. So it's kind of not. I think people think because you do bring a lot of yourself to improvisation, obviously, because it's all coming from you. But when you're doing this, like, you're so supported by so many people. There's another 8 people on stage, with actors and musicians, and so you're never on your own. So you never feel like, oh God, this is all down to me. And if you are having, like, I had a frozen shoulder for a while, and I was just like, so I just won't be doing any of the dancing, and everyone's like, fine, well, my dance moves will not be using this shoulder.
It is your time with that girl.
It's my time, it's my time.
It is your time with that lady.
It's my time.
'Cause this rock knows the truth.
And it's that whole thing of performers collectively feeding off each other, like collective consciousness. And I was just talking before we started about you guys coming back into a room together over Easter to try and get to build up those relationships again, because you have to have a sort of an understanding and be on a similar wavelength, otherwise you're not going to get a good show.
Yeah, and I think, with 2 years of being sort of distanced, either physically or, we found it very difficult when we went back into a room because obviously it's a musical, so there's a lot of emotional connection as well. And it was very hard to do that when you're 2 meters apart, and telling love stories when you can't touch is quite interesting. So it's been a real challenge, but it's been interesting seeing how we make those connections and how we continue making those connections with one another when we've been so separate, and like weird things that I don't think we even knew we needed or did. Like we had when we started doing our live streams, when we weren't allowed into theatres, we were separate in a room, all kind of in a circle. And we realised that from that distance, because we're all, most of us need glasses, we couldn't see the tiny little physical signals that we give each other unconsciously. Like I know that if Ali breathes in a certain way, I know she's probably going to start speaking, or she's going to start singing, or she's going to, and it can just be like a tiny raise of the shoulders that when you're next to someone and you've been, working with them for however many years we've all been working together, you read it subconsciously and unconsciously so quickly. So yeah, getting back into the room is really useful and has been really great to kind of sort of reconnect and refine those, little connections with one another. Yeah.
This rock knows your soul.
Right, time for a final check on the weather now. This evening remains mild with temperatures around 9 degrees overnight. Tomorrow morning is much of the same with light cloud and a moderate breeze. Looking ahead, on Saturday and Sunday there will be sunny intervals with temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, so you might be able to catch some rays this weekend. That's it from us tonight. Thanks for watching the show. We'll be back with more news from across London at 6 p.m. tomorrow. See you then.